So one of my tips is you can be an expert without having the expertise. So you can find and research, and you don't have to know it all. So sometimes we feel like we can't go and provide services or start a business until we know everything about that business. And I know that from my own experience and other companies that I've started, for example, I also started a technology company. And again, it all arises out of a need. So I'm sitting here, I'm working with students, my kids are in sleep, and I don't have time to do all the paperwork. I want to spend that time with my family and my children. It's like, well, there's got to be a way to do this. I am not a programmer. And yet we had a knowledge and a drive, and we saw a need. So you can go out there and provide that, be an expert in certain areas without having all the expertise.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you. And this is another episode of the Mompreneur Success Podcast. Today's guest is none other than Cyndy McDonald. So glad to have her. We met recently at She Podcast Live in Scottsdale, Arizona, which was an awesome conference, but more importantly, just such a wonderful opportunity to network with other female podcasters and just camaraderie. It was a beautiful experience. And in the process, I got to meet Cyndy. She is an innovator and trendsetter in business and in college counseling. She's an active member of several professional organizations and serves as an adjunct faculty member for UCLA's College Counseling Certificate Program. Cyndy has also started several businesses connected to education and technology and offers business coaching on a group and individual basis. Welcome, Cyndy.
Denise, I'm so glad to be here. I also agree with you that going to that conference, the podcast conference, it was the first one that we all had, coming out of COVID. We were all a little tentative, and it was so rejuvenating. It was so uplifting. I met so many wonderful people like yourself, and to hear what's going on in the podcast space and all the wonderful things that women are doing, it was just so exciting.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So first and foremost, what I want to do is I want to get a little bit more information about what it is that you do right now in the coaching space and how that works.
Well, it's pretty exciting. I think coaching is going through a lot of transformations right now. I think COVID has really contributed to that, because we are learning that you don't have to do everything face to face, that you can still be an effective business leader and entrepreneur with virtual, using Zoom or whatever other tools and resources you have. More and more people are setting up classes. So my role is to help females in particular, but anybody who's trying to build a practice. And my focus is on that kind of service industry. I've been a college counselor for over 30 years. And so I've been working in the industry of helping students and having clients. And we have more and more people that are going into that or other professions, and they're wondering, well, how do I start this and where do I go? So I just started, it's like anything else, Denise, you see a need, right? And you go in, it's like, well, how can I help you? And so people start asking you questions, and then pretty soon you have a podcast, and then pretty soon, you're offering coaching services. So that's what I've discovered, and that's what I've been doing, especially as COVID is as we started and went through, hopefully, I'm in California and things are looking much better now than they did before. So, but helping, each other to learn and grow and get over some of the challenges or the roadblocks that we put in front of ourselves sometimes too. One thing that I'll mention that I haven't had a chance to tell you yet, but I became a widow during the COVID.
I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you. you know, it wasn't, my husband didn't pass away of COVID, but he passed away during COVID. And so, you know, that just all the traditional things that you go through, we're all just kind of put on hold because we couldn't do, you know, we couldn't have a service. We couldn't go to the cemetery. We couldn't do, you know, family couldn't travel. And so I was faced with, what am I going to do? I have to do this on my own. And that's when I started really looking at, okay, what can I do? And looking at my mindset and how can I do this? And what do I need to think about in order to do this? And I know if I'm going through these thoughts and feelings, I know other women and other business entrepreneurs are going through those things too. So, you know, and I think that's what we bring when we're working in a network or working in a coaching environment or any other kind of collaborative experience, is helping each other and knowing that we're all have similar thoughts, right?
Yeah.
And feelings, and how do you either you overcome them, let them limit you, or you go past them and use those as a springboard to move on to the next level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. I can relate somewhat to that experience for sure. Like I said, somewhat, definitely not the same. But I lost my mom in 2020. And just figuring out how to, like, what do you do? And like, I was that person who kind of like navigated a lot of it. So it was just like sort of, hey, what do you do now? Like, we're in the middle of a pandemic. Like, what do you do? That certainly has worked. Also in the way of the coaching space. I found that my business, I actually started my business in 2018, 18, 19-ish. But I found that last year it really took off because of the pandemic. And it was really about those connections and about those opportunities virtually that really changed the whole space. So I get it, definitely. But I love that. I love a lot of what you said and how true that is, and that connection piece, but that also that mindset piece,
right?
Just really making that definitive decision about where am I going to land after this experience? What am I going to do about it? How am I going to navigate this? So cool. So much of this podcast is focused around this idea of, oh my gosh, I am frustrated. I'm overwhelmed. I'm putting in all this time, all this effort. I'm doing all the posts, but I'm still paying all of this money out and I'm not even hitting any profits, or I'm not hitting the sales goals that I expected. So really, this is really the opportunity for inspiration, encouragement, motivation. And I always ask my guests, what 3 strategies can you offer to startup mompreneurs when it comes to getting to profitable quickly? What would you say would be your best 3 pieces of advice?
I think that's those are great questions and things that we want to think about. And I want to preface this by saying I love that you're talking to mompreneurs. I think that is just fantastic. I know when I started my practice, I'm a mom of 4, and my kids were really little. They were in elementary school. My youngest was 9 months old. So I'm doing all of this when they're in bed, you know, at the end of the night, and you're trying to get all this stuff done and
Yes.
You know, and trying to balance that business.
Yes.
But the joy of being able to, and the reason you do this, and this connects to your question, is that you do it so you can have control over your schedule. You know, I'm a credentialed counselor. I can work in the schools. I live in California, but I knew a counselor schedule wouldn't allow me to go to my students' musical program or help out as a classroom in the classroom or things like that. So I became an entrepreneur so that I could control my own schedule. And that's one of the things that I love about, being a mompreneur is having that opportunity, because we will always have something to sell. We will always have a business we can do. Right. You're never going to recapture that time with your children.
Right.
You never can turn back that clock and go back and do whatever, So I love that, we're talking to mompreneurs. So one of my tips is you can be an expert without having the expertise. So you can find and research, and you don't have to know it all. So sometimes we feel like we can't go and provide services or start a business until we know everything about that business. And I know that, from my own experience and other, companies that I've started, for example, I also started a technology company. And again, it all arises out of a need. So I'm sitting here, I'm working with students, my kids are in sleep, and I don't have time to do all the paperwork. I want to spend that time with my family and my children. And so there's got to be a way to do this. So my husband's a database programmer. So I went to him and said, okay, I need this. And then we talked about it some more. He's like, well, if I need it, somebody else does it too. Well, I am not a programmer. And yet we had a knowledge and a drive, and we saw a need. So you can go out there and provide that, be an expert in certain areas without having all the expertise. So don't let the fact that you don't know everything hold you back. Right. And
awesome. I love that.
I think that, sometimes that I've talked to people, Denise, who said, they've been working for 2.5 years and launching their business. Or they're like, when we went to the podcast, I met somebody who's been working on doing her podcast for 2.5 years.
Wow.
Go for it. You don't have to have everything in place. Yes. You don't have to have a perfect website either. I mean, I've launched my last website. I have one page with one paragraph on it. And now it's grown since then. But
right.
Until I had it all there, I wouldn't have had anything. And now I have a huge email list that has grown, and I'm continuing to build that. But don't wait until you have everything perfect to get going or to move to the next level. So that'll help you get to profitability too. So that can be a limiting mindset thing that we put on ourselves, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think that is, sir, I love that. Definitely by far. But yeah, it is one of those things. Everybody has that idea of, I've got to be perfect. I've got to know it all. And it's like, no, you don't. You need to know more than the person who you're coaching.
Yep.
But that's about it. Definitely, you don't have to know it all.
And you can always say, I don't know that, but I'll get back to you.
Right. I'll find out.
Exactly. In an industry and so many businesses, things change so quickly anyway. I mean, we have Google. Right. You can look things up, and what people are looking for are not necessarily that you have all the answers, but just your approach. And that connects to one of my other tips is celebrating your brand. For so many years, I felt like, nobody wants to hear from me. They don't really want to hear my story. They don't really care about me growing up in Colorado as a cowgirl, on a cattle ranch. Nobody cares about that. And then I realized, people do. So celebrate your brand and who you are, and they will want to hear from you. They like your approach. That's why podcasts have become so popular. What you have to share, you have a particular audience, Denise, and people want to hear from you, and they want to hear from the people that you're interested in, because if you're interested in them, then they're interested. So if I have a business or you have something you're offering, then let people know. That's one of the things that's shifted everything so much in business and entrepreneurship is, you are building your business on your own brand, and celebrate that. And use that to help launch yourself. So, I met somebody at the podcast, I'm sure you know who I was talking about. She was wearing a tiara and she was just celebrating. And I thought it was fantastic.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think because it starts from within. It starts with us celebrating ourselves, and then people get it resonates with them, that vibration, that energy level that you have. Either they are attracted to it because they're on the same level, or they want to be on that level. They want to have whatever it is you have. I'll take what she has, So I think that's amazing, and that's really great too. Let's celebrate. Yeah, I think we forget. We get so caught up sometimes in the normal, humdrum of what it is we have to do, that we forget to say, oh, wow, look, I remember, like, for instance, I did something where I started talking about celebrating. So I track my goals, and I found that my business has grown exponentially since I started doing that, because it's sort of like knowing. It's one thing to say, oh, well, I want to get here. But there's another thing where every week, every month, every quarter, you're looking at, oh, well, have I gotten there? And what am I doing to get me there? And then, more importantly, how do I celebrate where I've gotten? So I had set a goal. I want to say it was like last February. I had 282 Instagram followers, because I really was not very active. Let's just go there for my business.
Probably where I'm at right now.
And so, but I put some intention behind it. And, now I'm like thousands, I'm like 2,000. I mean, it's not huge, but it's huge for me. It's 10 times what I had before. Let's just put it that way. I'm almost 10 times what I had before. But again, I celebrated when I got to 500. I celebrated when I got to 1,000, celebrated 2,000, et cetera, because although that didn't necessarily translate to my profits always, at the end of the day, it's still a goal that I hit. It's still something that I've done. So yes, celebrating the wins is very important, because it also gives you momentum. It gives you motivation and inspiration to keep going, because you're like, okay, something's hitting. There's people commenting and liking and actually following me and increasing my following. So yeah, so awesome.
Yeah,
thank you.
No, that's absolutely true. And there's research that shows this is much easier for males to do. Their socialization and everything, they're very comfortable with having that confidence and going into meetings and business, sales calls and things like that, and having that confidence. And sometimes we as women have not built that muscle. We have not built that familiarity with it. And, it's very easy for us to doubt ourselves and what we're doing and why we're doing it. And, just to have that. And as you said, to have that record and keep that journal of where am I at? Where have I gone? Where have I come from? And you just climb that mountain, a step at a time, instead of looking, I'm at the bottom and now here I am trying to get to the top. Seeing where you go in between makes a huge amount of difference. So that does make a big difference for you and helping your business to grow, and also your satisfaction in it, right?
Yeah.
If you're not enjoying this, this conversation this morning, making your job like a vacation, if it's something you really look forward to, you get up in the morning, gosh, I get to do this, then that's why we're entrepreneurs. There are other studies that show that people go into entrepreneurship to, manage their time, make more money, find value, connect to their authentic selves. And yet then they're spending more time, instead of a 40-hour week, they end up with a 60 or 80-hour week, and they're not getting those benefits that they're looking for. And so we need to be purposeful in that too, and finding that work-life balance. So.
That is absolutely true. Thank you. Yes. All right. Number 3.
So number 3 is sales is not a 4-letter word. So And again, this is really, I run into this with a lot of women, and I really run into this in my profession, in my industry, in education space, because I work with a lot of people who are coming out of education or therapy or, some kind of, profession like that. They never had to ask people for money, right? And it's really, really hard to say, here, now pay me. And so it is not, and we hate the word of sales. Oh, I'm not, people tell me all the time, I'm not a salesperson. But if you love what you're doing, and if you have a passion for it, you're not selling. It's just part of your brand. It's just part of who you are. And it just becomes part of, well, what are you doing? And why are you doing it that way? And how can I help you? And so we have to, as mompreneurs, we have to get over the hesitancy to ask for money. And we have to get over the hesitancy to talk, don't think of it as sales, and don't even think of it as marketing. Just think of it as, I'm sharing who I am and what I have to offer. Right. And but there's nothing wrong. It's not a 4-letter word to go out there and promote your product and whatever you're doing. So but
that's awesome. I love that. That is so true. And you bring up a great point. So of course, I'm a former educator, middle school, many years. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. We're not used to going out there and saying, hey, pay me for this service. We're used to that steady check that comes from wherever it is we work at. And even before, I used to work in the music industry, but even then, like I did to a certain extent have to negotiate, but even then there was sort of like standard practices and sort of expectations. But yeah, those 20 some odd years in education, you don't sell yourself. No, so right.
I know. And and for a lot of time, for some people, it's like, oh, it's actually discouraged. Like, you can't bring in services from an outside company into a school,
Oh, right.
You're showing preference, and you can't do that, and all these different things. Yes. So I know early on, so as an entrepreneur, you have to find ways that are comfortable for you, but still where you can ask for payment for your services. Right. And I'm talking about not in person, but like consulting, right. Client-based services, but it applies if you're selling shoes or whatever you're applying, right. You still have to, but you want to make it easy for your clients or whoever to pay you. So the more you can reduce those barriers, and sometimes you just have to think outside the box. Yeah. But I remember, so I created very early on, I created a carbon copy. Remember those? Yes. Wow. But I had a receipt, and when I was meeting with a client, at the end, I pull it out. Well, that was my visual cue. Okay, now it's time to pay me. And so then I just start writing on that. So I didn't have to ask anybody. I didn't have to say, here, now it's time to pay me. But I used visual cues to help find people that, oh, well, now it's, I got to pull, she's pulled out the receipt. Now I got to pull out my checkbook. So now you put links on your website, and when they set up an appointment with you, or they, it's easy with shopping carts. Like when you product, boom, that's kind of a guaranteed thing. I know if I'm going to buy shoes from you, I'm going to pay for them. But if I'm going to spend an hour with you to talk about, my child's career or major, am I going to pay? How am I going to pay? When do I pay? You want to make that real easy. You want to reduce as many barriers and put it in a way that connects to your customer. Right. So again, in a lot of industries, especially in a client-based industry, and in our industry and the college counseling space, a lot of times people request all the money up front, $5,000, $6,000. Right. I live in Central California. I have more cows in my county than I have people. And so people are not going to, give you dairies, nuts, all that comes from Central California.
Nice.
And so people aren't going to pay me $5,000 in one swoop, but they can pay me $100 a month, and they have no problem with that. So I make it easy. They do a, fill in a form. We set up a subscription, and it just automatically deducts from their ATM or credit card every month. I provide service for them. I don't have to worry about it. They don't have to worry about it, and we're done. And I get paid.
Love that.
Make it easy, but sales is not a 4-letter word.
Yeah, it's a muscle, I think, because I mean, even I initially felt uncomfortable about it, but now I understand. But also, it's a confidence too, though. It is. When you know that what you are providing is a valuable, commodity. Let's say that, whether it's a product or a service. When you know that you are bringing them value, you feel comfortable saying, well, the investment is, that's my word, because I'm not selling you.
Right.
I'm really bringing something to help you. At the end of this, you are going to get from this place to this other place that you're really wanting to get to. I'm taking away the pain that you are experiencing right now to you actually getting to the next level. And so I don't really perceive it as a sales or as a sale, so to speak. It's an investment that you're making, and I'm offering my time to you or my service to you in that way. But again, talk to me 3 years ago, that was probably not the conversation we would have. But as I've worked with more and more people, and I've seen more and more transitions from where they used to be to where they are, and that this works, and that this really happens. And, and I know I can guarantee, I can pretty much guarantee if you do the work, we're going to get you from here to there, period. So now there's a certain level of confidence there that says that, okay, I'm not selling you anything. I'm really offering you the opportunity to get to where you want to be.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, but I love that. Sales is not man, if I could tell you how many of customers and clients that I've worked with who really do, they're just like so afraid of that word. They're like, and I'm like, no, calm down. It's okay. You got this. You can do this. Yeah. And but it's one foot in front of the other. Yeah. And, it's one sale in front of the other, and again, it's that easy peasy kind of thing where you have something that is set up so that they can just automatically go and plug in their information on their end, and boom, we're ready to start. Now, look at that. That was so easy. Yep. And that didn't hurt at all.
And now then you can go back to those goals that you're working at, and you can see how you're, what income you have every month, and, where you're going, and they all tie together because, knowing and having confidence in what you have to offer as an expert, and then being able to celebrate your brand, and then being able to go out and, market it, and just, as you said, ask people to invest in themselves through what you have to offer.
Yeah.
Or whatever product you have going. So they definitely all tie together.
Absolutely. Because I think so many of us, especially as women and female entrepreneurs, we wait too long to start selling or to start offering what we bring. We really do. We get so caught up in this has to look like this, and this has to look like that, and I have to have this, and I have to do this, and I have to do these things, that at the end of the day, no, what you have to do is do what you say you do, which is offer this value to your customer. And it doesn't matter that you are doing these things that will get you in front of 1,000 people if you can start with one person.
Right.
And then keep moving from there. So yes, so I love that. So cool. Number one, be an expert without the expertise. All of these are like the things that stump us, and they all go back to our minds and what we think those things mean. That person who thinks that they have to be an expert at this before they can start, right? And then number two, celebrating. It's like, you got to celebrate it. You've got to get in that space where you're starting to own that. Cause I think that also builds your confidence, because you see that, oh, I can do this. Oh, I did this. Oh, I'm doing this. Right. And then at the end, again, mindset, what your perception of sales is. If you think it's a 4-letter word, well, yes, it's going to be a 4-letter word for sure. So yes, I love all of those. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So now tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you.
So the best way to reach me is actually through my website, Denise. I do have a Facebook. It's Cyndy. I don't even have to look it up. I think it's Cyndy McDonald Coach. But I've been
Cyndy Coach, CYNDY Coach. Yes.
Thank you. So that is my Facebook page, and note everybody, it's CYNDY.
Yes,
and
I
my
love
name
that.
is spelled with 2 Y's. And that's my website also at Cyndy, CYNDY McDonald, and it's McDonald.com. So I have a page there. I also offer Friday forums, so I'll mention those if people can come and listen to. I interview subject matter experts like Denise and other people about business, about education, just about topics that are important to us. And I offer those twice a month. So those are free. People can register to join the Friday Forum. And my next one will be in December, and then I'll have more in January. So there's registrations there on my website for that. And I'd love to see anybody. There's a link on my website if people want to. I do offer a free initial consultation as a coach. So they're welcome to set up an appointment to meet with me as well.
Awesome. Again, Cyndy McDonald, you can contact her via her website at CYNDYMCDONALD.com. And all of this will be in the show notes, so you will have easy access to that. And thank you so much. I appreciate your time and definitely your advice. It is right on point. Thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thanks for having me, Denise. It's been a great pleasure.